Recording in progress.
Good evening and welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for February 19th. We'll do a quick round of introductions and then a Pledge of Allegiance and go from there. Start with Planning Commission staff.
Cameron Duncan,
Jennifer George,
Danny Schoenfeld,
Dave Bromley,
Ron Mortimer,
Steve Wrigley.
and then James, do you want to introduce staff?
Yeah, we have a few staff members here with us tonight. I'll just ask them to raise their hand as I introduce them, and each of them will be participating in the meeting tonight. My name is James Sorensen. I'm the Community Development Director. Mike Wilcox, the Planning Director, is here with us. Darian Alcorn, Senior City Attorney. Jake Warner, Long Range Planning Manager. Clinton Spencer is Development Services Manager of the city. Brittany Ward, Assistant Public Works Director. And Ivan Hooper is Transportation Engineer, who's back here with us. And then Aisha over here is the Planning Secretary with us tonight. Thanks.
All right, we'll do, if you could please rise and we'll do a quick Pledge of Allegiance and we'll go from there.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first public hearing item tonight is the Fortner rezone. Jake, I think you've got that one.
Good evening, Planning Commission. For the public, Jake Warner, Long Range Planning Manager for the city. The city has received a rezone application for property located at 8564 South, 10th East. The application is requesting a zone change on the property from the R110 zone to the RM12 zone. Property, there's two parcels involved. The property total is approximately 0.65 acres. As I mentioned, the property is currently zoned R110. It was recently annexed into the city and given that zone at that time. It is surrounded by unincorporated county property zoned A1 in the county to the north, and then RM12 and R210 zoned properties to the east, R210 zoned properties to the south, and an SD R17 zoned property to the west. The property, as I mentioned, was recently annexed into the city, so it was not part of the city when the city's general plan was done, which includes the future land use map. But we do have an annexation plan in the general plan that shows kind of that missing puzzle piece, indicating what that land use would be when it comes into the city, which it has now. And so that puzzle piece, that missing puzzle piece is shown in that cutout window, and it's designated as medium density neighborhood. Again, not all of that area in that puzzle piece came into the city with the annexation, just a portion of that, including the subject property. But that the subject property is designated as medium density neighborhood on the future land use map, which allows for up to 12 units per acre. And then and that matches the properties to the south and to the east of the subject property. There's some other pockets in that area that are also designated as medium density neighborhood in the area. The majority of that area is designated as low density neighborhood, which would be that lighter beige color on the map. The applicant has submitted a concept plan showing their intent to develop the property for 6 units. This would, according to the concept plan, they're showing a fourplex on 10th East and a duplex back behind to the west. They have also submitted conceptual elevations of what the architecture would be. This is a change from what was shown at the neighborhood meeting. The neighborhood meeting was held on January 21st. My understanding is that they've attempted to address some of the neighbors' concerns as far as the architecture, and so this is a different elevation than what was shown at that time. As I mentioned, neighborhood meeting was held on January 21st. This is a legislative item, so it is being presented to you tonight, to the Planning Commission for a public hearing and to make recommendation to the City Council. The City Council would be the final decision maker on this item, and there are meetings scheduled with the City Council for March 3rd and March 10th to hear this item and for that decision. With that, the applicant is available, and staff is also available to answer questions.
Any questions from the commission? Do you want to have the applicant, or they're here or online? Do you want to have the applicant come down and just state your name and address for the record and just give a little bit of background on the project or information you'd like to add that wasn't already presented?
My name is Josh Becker. My address is actually out of state, so.
If you could just give it for the record.
Yeah,
please.
12800 Lone Mountain Pass, Leander, Texas.
Thank you.
I'm working with Ben, who lives here local in South Jordan, but can I use this and go back and forth and use your slides? Just as was mentioned, I mean, we tried to address some of the concerns from the neighborhood meeting. The major concerns were, I mean, the elevations that we had originally presented were a little bit more modern, and they felt like that didn't fit in with the neighborhood, which I would agree. So we went to a more traditional elevation, and then some of the other concerns were, as was also mentioned, the property to the west is single-family residential, 7,000 square foot lots. But the property to the south and to the north are both multifamily. The one's unincorporated, but the other is a duplex. And so in an attempt to kind of provide some transition, we put a duplex next to the duplex that currently sits to the south. There are 3 residents living to the north, but we did a duplex and then a 4-plex as it transitions to that RM12 across the street, you know, to kind of provide some transition for that R17 to the duplex zoning, to the 4-plex zoning. But our 4-plex is a little bit, it's less traditional, it's more of a townhouse style 4-plex. Again, in an attempt to kind of fit in with the neighborhood and the surroundings. There will be no connectivity between the R17 and our property, but we did try to keep the house away from the property, so it felt like those backyards will, you know, they'll touch so that it feels more like a residential neighborhood. Outside of that, the other concern, which is always tends to be a concern, was traffic. And so we've spent some time looking into traffic, and you know, attached housing typically generates about 7 trips per day. So single-family residential generates about 10 trips per day. So the traffic, in our opinion, well, it's just negligible. It's 40 trips per day versus 42 trips per day with 6 homes. So outside of that, I don't have really much else. I think everything was covered, unless you guys have questions as far as for me.
Steve, did you have a question?
Yeah, I've got one. Are these going to be owner occupied, or are these going to
Yes.
be rental units?
They're owner occupied. The current homeowner, Jolene, she actually reached out and wanted us to, she would like a place to live and she wants to stay there. And so she will own one half of the duplex, and then the others will be sold individually.
Okay, so it's not
Yeah.
going to be rental.
It's not a rental community, no.
Any other questions for the applicant?
Chair, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, if it's a townhouse style, is there going to be common area, and will there be an HOA to maintain that, or how will you handle that?
There won't be common area. They'll be individually platted.
Okay.
So, yeah, they'll be individually owned and individually platted.
So then, yeah, so the landscaping in front of the driveway, that individual homeowner will need to
Correct.
take care of that.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay.
Another concern that was addressed, sorry,
Go ahead, please.
was the parking, and so we did full driveways and 2-car garages just to accommodate, you know, the homeowners and guests or whatever, so, anyway.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Jake, did you have any follow-up?
I don't have anything to add unless you have any questions of me.
Okay, I don't think so. This item has been noticed to the public. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this? Want to raise your hand and come down and, we'll give you, just come down and state your name. And then right after, please state your name and address for the record, please. You'll have 2 minutes to.
Okay. My name is Paul O'Brien. Live at 8381 Parkhurst Circle, which is not too far from this property, about 900 east. So I walk by this property and cross at 8600 just about every day. So my concern is that there's a very awkward crosswalk at the intersection of 8600 and 10th East, and makes it difficult to cross there. And I approached the city about a year ago about getting those yellow rapid flashing beacons there to make it, to protect the crosswalk a little bit. It's kind of like the crossing over to Hale Center Theater. Well, for various reasons, the city's not able to do that. So, and I think that it was told to me that it's in the budget for like 2032. What I'm concerned about this development is that, and I just heard about negligible traffic and so on. It seems like every development says it's going to be negligible traffic. And I remember when they built the Rockledge Apartments, there was a lot more traffic created on 8600 than we were told. But anyway, my bottom line is that this development is going to put more people, more traffic at that intersection. I don't know if you went out on the field trip today and saw it. There's a lot of activity there. There's very little pedestrian activity right now because it's just scary to try to cross. So what I'm asking tonight is that either you hold off on approval on this rezoning until the city improves this intersection, at least the crosswalk part of it, or, and I don't know if you can do this, make this development contingent on the crosswalk being improved first before construction is able to start on the development.
Thank you.
All right.
Sir, if you want to come down and state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name's Ron Larson. I'm at 963 State 600 South Sandy, Utah. I am a neighbor, and I am the R17, SDR17.
Sir, could you speak into one of the two mics?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
I'm the SDR17 property that is directly to the west of this property that is in question. And I was told at the time that I was looking for rezoning my property, there would be no allowance for multifamily dwelling properties in that area. I was told that. I've also was told that I would have to donate a lot of my property for sidewalk, for curb and gutter, and for park strips. And this property, the pictures that he has shown you do not have any curb and gutter, no park strip, and no sidewalk. Now, if you look at 10th East and you look at the almost miles of 10th East, there is a width of 10th East, and I'm asking, are you going to require them to dedicate a portion of their property like you require me to the width of 10th East, that it match the miles and miles with very little exception of 10th East? You should have a plan in place that shows how wide 10th East is supposed to be. That width should be included in this development, plus curb and gutter, plus park strip, plus sidewalk, which you have required me to do in the R17 that borders this property. And I was required to put in a 2.5 foot wide curb and gutter, a 5 foot wide park strip, and a 5 foot wide sidewalk. Now, since these parking, their driveways are extremely close together, and there's almost no on-street parking at all with the concept that they are showing. There's none. You cannot park in front of this entire piece of property with those driveways that close together without blocking those in. Plus, they only show a 20-foot driveway. So not only that, the bumper of their car might be sticking out into the street if you have no park strip and you have no sidewalk and you have no curb and gutter, which they might show curb and gutter, but they don't show sidewalk and they don't show park strip. And they do not, and I don't see anything showing that they're going to have to dedicate a portion of their property to make 10th East wide enough to match the rest of the property, or the rest of 10th East, for miles and miles down the road, with very few exceptions. It's many miles of a certain width, and that's how wide that street should be. And I think that because you have required me to do these things, to make 8600 South wider, you should also make this property required to be wider, or I mean required to dedicate property to 10th East. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else here in the audience that would like to speak to this? Come down and please state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Mike Darracott. I'm at 8566 South Johnson Way, so just a little bit west of this location. Well, I'll be third generation that's living right in that area. My grandfather bought property right there in the 40s. So it's changed a lot over the years. My dad, who's in his 80s, lives with us and tells us stories about bathing in the creek on 8600 South. 8600 South, I think that was built in the 40s. You know, it was kind of an eastward going roadway out of historic Sandy, is what we call it now. And off of 8600 South were bigger lots. There are, I counted them, 12 bigger lots off of 8600 South that wrap around to 10th East. You don't quite show it in that map. You'd have to go a little further west to see that. This sets a bad standard for my neighborhood. I just built a home there 2.5 years ago. What this could do is, as these other lots, you know, the people that live there, many of them are getting older. So those lots will be sold. This sets a standard for all of those lots to be zoned in a similar way. This is bad for our portion of Sandy. I'm asking you not to approve it. I understand that, you know, these builders want to make a profit off of it. I understand that. That's business, that's life, that's why we work. And I understand that the homeowner would like to set herself up for a better situation for the twilight years of her life. But this isn't the way to do it. This is too dense. This is too close to too close to 10th East, which already has a lot of traffic off of it. I agree with a lot of what the former gentleman said, that, you know, the road should be expanded to capacitate the additional traffic that this will bring in. I mean, I'm glad that they're saying it's a 2-car garage. That's an upgrade that would put fewer cars out on 10th East. But the duplex on the corner that, you know, the gentleman talked about, that already has a problem. It has like no parking, and so all the people park right out there on the road, sometimes really close to that stop sign. I'm sure it's not within the 10 feet or whatever the statute is for parking near a stop sign, but yeah, you just can't approve it. It sets a bad precedent. I just think it's too dense. You know, maybe that's a triplex and a home in the back. I don't know, but there's got to be a better answer that maintains what that neighborhood is like. Right now, they're big, beautiful lots with single-family homes on them. Some have added a flag lot with like a house in the front and a newer home in the back. But that's still not, you know, a fourplex like what they want to put in here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak to that?
I'm Shannon Maynard. Sorry, this is very terrifying for me. I live in the Salt Lake County areas. If you go back to the other map, I'm in the gray zone, so I will be annexed into Sandy City by 2027. I am 8536 South, 1000 East, so I'm just 2 lots down. As been mentioned, the apartments were brought up in the previous meeting. I think it's important to note that those were built in 1986. So since then, the fields and the farmlands have been built into the single-family R1 lots. And so like I said, a lot of growth has occurred, but again, it's been the single-family lots that have been there, not the the RM12. So I think that's important to note that this community has been growing, and it's a great community. But it's grown again into the medium zone, not the higher density. And a lot of us have been generations. I'm a generation homeowner, sorry. I've been in this area for 40 years. I've been a homeowner for 20 years. So again, this area has grown with, it's grown a lot. Like I said, I grew up walking in the fields and walking in the creeks and everything. And so I believe this community, the majority of this community is the single family home, and that's how this property should stay zoned as the R1. Like I said, I know there's a couple different, I know there's like the 8 and the 7, I don't know how all that works, but keeping it the single family home with maybe 2 homes on it, I believe is a better option than doing the higher density. I've been told that Sandy City does approximately 5 homes per acre. So with doing the 6 townhomes on the 0.65 acres is more than double that density for that smaller lot. So it is it's a much higher density than what the current properties are behind it. And you can't see in here, like I said, those of us that are in the Salt Lake County, we are single family homes. It doesn't show on here, but the home next to the property that is 8550, it is a single family home. And then my neighbors are all single family homes as well. So if you drive along 10th East, you will see that all of the structures and all the homes that are facing 10th East are single family homes with 1 driveway per property. And so like I said, so the density of these is, like I said, it would be double what's currently there. And it would not only impact the look of this neighborhood, but again, like what the gentleman before me said, it sets a precedent for those of us that have larger lots that would possibly be sold in the future, for them to rezone at the higher density than what they currently are with the single family homes. And the look, the appearance of these, they can change it on here, but as you drive, you can tell the difference between a single family home and townhomes. It would be completely different than the surrounding homes and those that are across the street and farther down. There's been multiple homes that have been built along 10th East, and they're all single family homes. So the townhomes would be completely contrasting all of the single family homes along 10th East. And again, I agree that the precedent needs to be set now for all of those larger properties that will possibly be developed in the future. And I mean, I'm one of those properties, and it's the same for me. I think it should still, for future down the line, it still should be the R1 zoning for single family. And the parking was an issue too. They mentioned they had the 2-car garages, but if you actually look at the size of them, they're pretty small. So with the size of trucks and SUVs, I don't know that you could get 2 in the driveway, like in the garage. So that would mean the parking would have to be on the driveway or on the street. And as someone who has to back out onto 10th East every day, there are some days where it's very, it can be scary. I have a teenager, and heaven forbid she hits someone because she can't see. We already have people that park on the street, and it's very hard for her to see people when she's backing out, when there's cars parked there. Sorry. So the issue, like I said, is they do have the garages, but they're very small. And with a lot of the trucks and SUVs, where are they gonna park? If you have multiple people that are drivers in those townhomes, where are they gonna park? Again, it's already a dangerous situation. It's been brought up. There's been cyclists almost hit. I've seen people walking. There's runners. They are along that street every day. I see people still to this day. There's certain people that walk every day, ride their bike every day. So having parking on the street close to that intersection and then also blocking those of us that have to back out every day is a major safety issue. And it's a big concern that I think needs to be addressed prior to any, I guess, decision on this. Like the other gentleman said, even today, coming to this meeting, there was almost an accident right at that intersection. So it's a big concern. And we have school zones too. I see kids walking home. So the parking is also, like I said, a big concern. I believe needs to be one of the safety issues that needs to be addressed prior to this being. And then again, just the rezoning. I understand that Jolene wants to stay there, but I believe, like one of the other residents said, there's a better way to use this property than doing the multifamily townhomes that she is proposing. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else tonight? Mike, anybody online? Oh, I'm sorry, one more. Sorry, come on down.
I am Matthew Clayton. I live at 982 East Marewood Court. I just would like to second the concerns of the residents in the area. I believe that is a high traffic area for, or a high safety issue with the traffic and the parking, kids walking to and from school. So just would like to second all of that.
Thanks you. If you can pick one of the two mics and just put your, yep, thank you.
I'm Owen Tucker, and I just live right above this place on 8548 South Harvard Park Drive. And that's my daughter. I need you people to understand that you're destroying our neighborhood. I hate going into her house to pick up the grandkids to go someplace. Unless you've been there on 10th in the morning or in the afternoon or at 5 o'clock and somebody made a wonderful decision, took it Harvard Park Drive all the way through to Walmart. So you've destroyed Harvard Park Drive. And it doesn't even equal. So as people are coming up and down the street, we turn into each other because there's no light there and the streets are offsetting. You're supposed to be helping us and listening to us. I've lived there since 1980. So I've been through it all. You probably weren't here in 1986, but we came down here, 20, 30, 40 of us, not here, up at the Sandy City Unit at Centennial Park. And we were crying, we were upset because you were going to build those gray apartments. And we said no. You don't even have a sidewalk in front of that between Harvard Park Drive and 10th, where our kids are walking to elementary school. We've been promised a sidewalk there since 1981. Just so we don't trust anymore. You're not doing what we're asking. We said no to the gray apartments. How'd that work out? And now my daughter and her children are now walking down sidewalk-less streets coming home from Sandy Elementary, East Sandy. And now you want to throw in, I don't know where they get these stats about 42 in and 42 out. Come on, my wife and I live there. We have 2 cars, and we're in or out a few times a day. And now you want to put 12 cars there? 12 cars backing in and out on 10th, and you're right next to 86. When we have cars parked in front of that duplex next to her, we can't see to get out. You know how many times I've backed out and almost been hit by a car because I can't see with a car there? This all sounds great for a distance, but I want you to come and live on 10th East for a while and see if that makes a difference to you. We're tired of, I know, we're just old baby boomers that were born after World War II. So why the hell listen to us? We're nobody anymore, right? I'm 74 and I'm one of the younger ones around that area. So if you pass this, I'll be in here again to sell my half acre, and I'll demand that you allow me to put 6 duplexes or 6 units on my house. I'm right there. And you told Larson's they couldn't do it. And now you're going to sit here and do it? And you know what really upsets me? I'm sorry, I don't want to get personal, but you grew up right there. The Warners live 2 houses down from me. He should know better than what he's doing to destroy that area.
If we can just keep it to the germane to this topic.
So this is just an application
Yeah,
before us.
please.
There's been no decision made.
Well, okay, but what I'm saying is, are you listening to us? Because we did the same thing in 1986 for the Gray Apartments, and we were ignored. We lived there. After we fought the apartments, they came in and wanted to rezone it again, to put one in our backyard, and we did fight that, and they did listen. So I know you're good people, and I know you're listening, but if you don't know the area, our kids are walking around on sidewalk-less streets, and they're already talking to my daughter about widening the streets. Okay, well then these guys have to widen theirs and put in a sidewalk and put in gutter too. Why do they get away with it? And now you're gonna put 4 units 20 feet from the road, and how are they gonna get in and out?
Thank you.
Those driveways all go right out into the street. They're already parking in front of my daughter's house so she can't see, and now you're gonna put 12 more cars there? Please. How do you sleep at night? I mean, give us a break. Listen to us. It's wrong.
Thank you for your time.
Howdy. I'll be brief. Daniel Derricott, 8558 South Johnson Way Drive, just up the street. I'm not opposed to there being some development on this or whatever, but I do think that what some of the previous folks have talked about with the lack of sidewalks in that area, with the crosswalk there, I've almost hit somebody on that sidewalk, or crosswalk. It seems when people want to go across that crosswalk, they think that they have the right of way there. Coming down that hill, especially when it's slick on 8600 South, you know, I might hit the brakes and they might win the lawsuit, but they won't be there to collect the money. So anyway, that is the traffic there, or the foot traffic is an issue. I am also in favor of making sure that it's zoned R1. Family homes are what keep it as a community versus just a transient sort of place. There's plenty of that on the south side of 8600 South. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
They're all telling me I have to stand up and say something, so
If
here
you
I am.
could state your name and address, please.
I'm Richard Hill, and I live at 936 East, 8560 South, so I live just west of the field. You know, I don't know if I can add any more substance to what's already been said, other than to show my solidarity with my neighbors, contra to the development into these homes. And then the fact that, as Shannon was talking, it came to my mind that we're talking about the people who live there and already the congested parking. What happens when they entertain? When they have guests come over? Where are they supposed to park? They park on the street. I had one neighbor that's already he's in an electric wheelchair, and because you can't see, he got run over by a truck in his wheelchair. And so if we add more congestion to it, how many more people's lives do we put at stake? Anyway, that's all I have.
Thank you. Anyone else? Please come down and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, I'm Christy Vermosh. I live on 905 East Edgefield Road. So I'm just a little bit to the north off of 10th East. And we oftentimes use the 10th East getting onto 8600 South. And it's really a great side road that we can utilize instead of having to use 7th East or 13th East at times. But unfortunately, there's just not the infrastructure there in place for this sort of growing development. And so I just would really like to press again these safety concerns. I'm one of those people that does try to cross to the south over 8600 South to go walk over towards the new quarry bend. It's a lovely area. I take my life in my hands every single time I do that because there's not a functioning crosswalk as Mr. O'Brien has already talked about. The infrastructure is not there. It's not safe. Having 4 extra driveways coming out onto 10th East, that close to 8600 South, where there is that congestion, will be incredibly dangerous. And I don't want to see people who are not so used to the area getting hurt with that. Again, I'm in my mid-50s, and I can use my intelligence a bit to avoid it, but you have younger kids, you have people that are there. Please do not let this get more dense without having infrastructure in place and setting a bad precedent for the rest of 10th East. So we really appreciate you listening to us about this. I don't want to see any safety concerns either. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay.
Carla Thorup. I live on 976 East Addington Circle, which is just down a block away from this as well. The main concern is safety for sure, and we don't even have off of 10th East turning onto 8600 South. There's not 2 lanes. There's not a left-hand turn lane and a right-hand turn lane. So oftentimes to turn right, if you're in a hurry, cars will just sneak on the dirt to do that. So imagine how backed up it gets with just regular twice-a-day school traffic, let alone any more cars needing to back up there. There's not enough room for 2 cars, and people still try to make room for 2 to do a left-hand turn and a right-hand turn onto 8600. So I also disagree with the rezoning and also just huge safety concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone here? Anyone else? Mike, anybody online?
If you are joining us via Zoom webinar and would like to speak to this particular item, please use the raise your hand feature now, and we'll address you one at a time. We do have one hand raised. Hanson is the name. You may unmute yourself. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. Mr. Hanson, you may unmute yourself and go ahead and speak.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tyler Hanson. I live at 8514 Bayway Drive, so just east of the subject property. And understand the desire to develop and maybe add a home or 2 to the property. However, the question in my mind is how this aligns to the general zoning as it relates to the corridor of 1000 East. It seems like as already stated, there are single-family homes there. Putting this number of homes creates a bit of a dangerous precedent, as already been stated, because there's a lot of turnover that will be happening within the neighborhood, call it over the next 5-10 years. And so setting the precedent of being able to add, change the zoning and add this level of high-density housing will dramatically change the community, change the creation and input or output of the neighborhood. And so I would just question as you know, the planning and zoning has already been laid out for the neighborhood, and it's clearly residential homes. And changing this will set a very dangerous precedent and really create kind of a spot zoning that then will have a ripple effect, across the different neighborhoods as turnover happens within the other properties that are quite large, right around 1,000 East as well as 8,600 South. So would really appreciate some consistency and maintaining the community as it was planned, and for the overall enjoyment of the citizens who live here. So thank you, appreciate the time.
Thank you.
I'm seeing no other hands raised.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close that to the public comment and bring that back to Jake. Do you want to, or I don't know, we've got several issues that kind of came up relative to traffic, improvements. Do you want to speak to those, or see if Brittany or Ivan want to talk to some of the future developments on 10th East? I don't know how you want to.
Yeah, I'm happy to address whatever you would like me to. I do think that our city engineer or our transportation engineer would be better to address the traffic issues. Let me just start by saying 5 or 6 years ago, the city started to undertake a comprehensive general plan update, which is the long-term strategic plan for the city, grappling with a lot of different issues. And through that process, we heard a lot from the residents. Every opportunity we could provide, we did. And one of the things that we heard often was from residents who would like their children, their grandchildren to be able to live in the community, and they're not able to afford to do so. And so City Council grappled with that. These were not my decisions, but City Council grappled with that and through the general plan process did look at ways that the city could better provide alternative housing types to help address affordability issues in the community. And as part of that, there was a future land use map created. Future land use map helps to guide decision makers. There were policies enacted, and so with the existing duplexes, apartment in the area, with the roadway there, understanding that there are probably some infrastructure improvements that need to be done in that area, which we are aware that there are infrastructure improvements planned, but through the approval by the City Council and the involvement of this body, there were some policy directions taken in the general plan, and this particular corner was in an area that already has medium density and was identified as potential for additional medium density as some of those alternative housing types to help with the affordable housing issues. And again, that document is a guide for decision makers, but that document is now in place. It was approved last year, and the follow-up to that is that we need to adjust some of our zoning regulations, and we are in the process of starting to do that in a comprehensive way, and to better correlate the tools that we have through zoning with the vision that was outlined in the general plan. So those are in the works, and those have been. This document has been consulted by the applicant and staff within what the applicant desires to do, try to provide some input as to maybe ways that they could improve their project to address some of the concerns. Staff does not advocate for, but we do have a general plan in place that we use ourselves in working with applicants. So again, that's a very high level overview of kind of where staff is coming from, and would be happy to address anything more specifically if desired.
Jake, there's some of the discussion that I think residents are having at this point is looking at this and saying, okay, hey, if this gets done here, it's really going to creep throughout, and some concerns in that regard. And maybe if you could, with this exhibit that's up here, maybe just discuss what that light yellow is and what the potential in that light yellow area is for a creep of medium density into the light yellow.
So with the direction that the city wanted to go as far as how do we incorporate better housing opportunities in our community with a city that's mostly built out. If the city were to do more, what would be the most appropriate locations for that to happen? The existing corridors, the significant major roadways were identified as areas that have some existing infrastructure in place that could better handle traffic if additional housing were to be introduced. And so the yellow itself, as highlighted on 8600 South, is what we call a transition corridor that does indicate that there may be an opportunity there because of the infrastructure to introduce some of those alternative housing types. Missing Middle comes to mind.
I'm actually meaning light 10. Maybe talk about the light 10,
Okay.
Which is the predominant.
Sorry, I thought you said the yellow.
I did, and it's my bad. I meant the light 10.
So, yeah, the shades of beige here. Generally, we have 4 future land use designations for residential. We have a very low neighborhood designation that would be maybe more the estate lots or agricultural lots. We have a low density neighborhood designation that would be some of your typical single family lots. And then
Which is most of this area.
Yeah, most of that area. And then you have kind of that medium beige color that is a medium density neighborhood designation. And you can see a couple of pockets of that in here. Primarily, those pockets are existing medium density areas or areas adjacent to commercial or more significant roadways. And then and the general plan indicates a cap, kind of a guideline on density of up to 12 units per acre in those areas. That's not, the danger with a cap is, some people want to maximize that, and how do we allow that but still mitigate the impacts? And so it's a constant balancing act, and staff will encourage or discourage people to try and achieve a balance there. We do not bring forward half of the potential applications that we could get as we work through that balancing act with potential applicants, and try to help potential applicants determine the likelihood that their project would be acceptable. But we are required to process applications that we receive, and that's staff's role in these types of applications. And then, sorry, to finish, the last designation would be the high density neighborhood, which would be that darker beige or brown area, which you can see as has been mentioned with the apartments. And then while we're on this map, there's other opportunities. You can see the orange area on this map. We have some struggling older commercial areas. And some of those property owners have approached the city and wanted to do high density, redevelop. And the city's been very hesitant to do that. But through this process, we looked at again, kind of that balancing, and maybe there's some opportunity for some type of mixed-use development to introduce some of those alternative housing types, and that's kind of what those orange areas are. Again, this map basically indicates opportunities for some of those alternatives and is not a defining, definitive outcome, but it is a guide for decision makers that in a very broad way signifies a whole range of policies and objectives from a 400-page document.
Steve, did you have?
So are you saying that it can creep up, as our neighbors are saying, or probably not? And then I did a couple other.
Well, I started to go that way with the yellow, and then we were brought back to the beige, but, so the yellow does indicate that, based on city policy, there may be opportunity along those major roadways identified by the yellow highlighted areas for some medium-low density alternative development or infill.
Okay. The other question that we're asked, the infrastructure, sidewalks, all that, can you talk about that for this particular, they didn't show it on.
Steve, I think we're going to have the city engineer talk to that.
Okay.
Uh,
That may be a different, some of that may be planning, some of that, as far as traffic, but as far as improvements,
Yeah, I'm just
we
talking
would
sidewalks.
typically require our standard city improvements with any development. And in this case, the county has a project already on the table. It is our expectation that the county will complete that project and put those improvements in. Regardless, if this property were to be redeveloped, those improvements would be required. That dedication would be required according to our master transportation plan and the standards established through that document.
Just the other question on that, 6 versus 5 homes per acre, that was brought up. Why is there 6 versus 5? That was the question I asked.
I don't know where that number came from. If you were to average the density across the residential areas of the city, that may be, I can see that being in the range across all residential areas in the city. That actually may be high. But you know, if we look at these beige designations, the low-density neighborhood goes up to 6 units per acre. There was some debate on that by the city council when this document was approved, and some adjustment made there.
Jake, we just make the point, though, where it says, keep in mind it says up to. That's a big deal because that's based on them looking at the character of the area, you know, different things that they would look at to base that on. So it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen. It just means you have an option possibly of going up to that based on certain factors.
Thank you. Anything else? Any other questions?
No, I just, maybe just to kind of clarify our process for some of the residents, that right now what we're looking at is a zone change. We're not looking at a site plan approval, and so that's a different step. So as this moves forward, this body makes a recommendation to the city council, and they're the ones who would approve that zone change, and then the applicant would still have to come back with a site plan, and that's where you do road widenings and setbacks, and you see what the site plan's really going to look like. Right now, it's just kind of a concept.
Conceptual, yeah.
Is that helpful? And then, Jake, I guess kind of along those lines, RM is residential multifamily?
Yes, of up to 12 units per acre. The concept plan that was provided would be at about 9 units per acre.
Right, because it's 0.6, okay. But we're not going to get anything besides residential on that lot if we go to an RM.
Churches, schools,
Sure.
some of those public institutional uses are allowed in residential zones, so.
But we're not going to get a swing.
Probably not, but technically there are non-residential uses allowed in residential zones.
You're not going to get a swig.
We're not going to get a swing, okay. Great, thank you.
Is there also like an RM 10 or RM
So with the RM zone, the applicant has to request the density when they come before, when they submit their application. We have an RM 6, 8, 10, 12. Each of those comes with a different set of regulations. Not only does it impose a maximum density, but for example, there's an associated
Setbacks.
minimum area requirement.
Some wet area?
A minimum area requirement per unit. And so sometimes to get the area requirement to match the unit count and the density, there's some movement there's some things they need to consider when they come before you with that designated density associated with the RM zone. There's different factors besides the density that determine that decision.
Brittany, would you be willing to come up and kind of talk about some of the road improvements or that project, some of the items that were discussed as concerns?
And timing.
Yeah. Brittany Ward, city engineer, also the assistant public works director, as James introduced me as. There is quite a bit of project planning at this intersection happening right now. I am so grateful for all the residents that showed up and voiced their concerns and the needs of this area, because those are things that I'm currently trying to address. First of all, with the Fortner rezone, when they do come in with their proposed site plan, right-of-way dedication along 10th East, according to our major collector roadway cross-section, which 10th East is classified as, I will require that they provide that dedication and that those future improvements are installed. Now, aside from this rezone that we're talking about tonight, there are several projects going on right now. When these properties along the west side of 10th East were in Salt Lake County applied for a grant to install improvements connecting on 10th East to the existing improvements and sidewalk on the north side, going south along the west side of 10th East, and around the corner connecting to that new development going in on the south side of 8600 South. I am in biweekly meetings with Salt Lake County, working together with the consultants as well to design those improvements. They plan to install curb and gutter and a sidewalk along that stretch, as well as a southbound right turn pocket. There'll be a new ADA ramp that's getting installed on that corner, that northwest corner of the intersection. There will be a crosswalk installed across the north leg, so crossing over the top of 10th East over to the corner. Historically, we have not been able to install improvements along 10th East because of the varying jurisdictions along it. Between some houses are in Salt Lake County, some are in Sandy City. Also, there's major utility conflicts along there, such as open drainage canals, gas lines, and power. The county got the grant to install improvements along 10th East prior to these areas annexing, west of 10th East annexing into Sandy City. And after they annexed, the county agreed to continue to move forward with the project and fund it. So they're being very generous to us to move forward with this project without any cost to Sandy City to get these improvements installed. I will provide coordination between the Salt Lake County project and this Fortner site plan development. I'm not sure which one will come first. It's just a matter of timing between when they submit their site plan for this development and we finish the design plans for the Salt Lake County project. Either way, there will be improvements installed along this frontage. Building on top of that, there's been, we have concept plans to add improvements along 8600 South to the east of 10th East, along the north side. Right now, there is a stormwater drainage canal there with gates that we're trying to resolve and work around. I applied for Safe Routes to School funding last year to install those improvements, and straighten out the crosswalk on the east leg that's existing there so that it's not skewed along the roadway. I was unsuccessful in getting those funds. The reasoning being because there's already an existing crosswalk in place, and funding project priorities, we're going towards locations that don't have existing infrastructure in place. However, I'm continuing to move forward with other funding applications to finish the improvements on that northeast corner of the intersection, rebuild the ADA ramp, and straighten out that crosswalk. Like I said at the beginning, I'm really glad there's residents here speaking about the concerns of lack of improvements along here. The best way that they can participate and help bring these projects along is to work with their school and the school district and submit letters of support for these projects. It helps make my application stronger so that I can get money to do the improvements. Right now, because there's so many utility conflicts going on here, it's a larger project than we can fund internally as a city. And then the other method that improvements get added is just through development. Just like this Fortner development here, that's the only other way that we get improvements added to this intersection. So.
Do you know how far down the improvements will go from 8600 south down 1000 east?
Along 10th East or along 86?
10,000.
Along 10,000 East. On the west side?
Yes.
Yeah, so yep, right where the mouse is pointing, I think that's Mike doing that. So there's existing sidewalk right there that dead ends. It'll connect to that existing sidewalk and go all the way south to 8600 south, so it'll complete that frontage.
And you said you'll be adding a right-hand turn lane, so someone addressed that there's only one lane, so people go in the dirt to turn right, so you'll be adding a right-hand turn.
Correct.
Okay.
The other thing about 10th East too is it's master planned to have bike lanes along the roadway. To the north of this in Midvale City, they already have bike lanes installed, and so we will connect onto those and extend them down south to 8600 south. 8600 south is a bike route right now, so it'll connect the active transportation gap. So I just need to get the improvements installed on 10th East so that I have room to add those bike lanes.
What is that? What's bike lane? Bike lane. Sorry.
Brittany, do you know how far through the design are you and when may this construction happen?
Yeah, so for the Salt Lake County project, we're at a 30% design level right now. I just had a meeting with them last week. The hope is to start construction on it this summer. For the northeast corner, the east side of 10th East, north side of 8600 South, I don't have a project timeline on that yet because I don't have funding for it yet. However, I do know that it is a priority project for Allison Stroud, who is the city council representative for this area.
One other question. It seems like there's a big issue with on-street parking. With our new road width and the bicycle lane on the side of the shoulder, is there enough shoulder space to park, or will on-street parking not be allowed?
That is yet to be determined. Because of the grading in this area, there's a concern that the road is sitting higher than the homes are adjacent to the roadway. So for right now, in order to get the improvements in place, we are trying to minimize as much as possible the how far back that the sidewalk is going to be installed, because that means that we'll have steeper downsloping driveways into the properties, and we want to avoid that storm drain sloping toward the homes as much as possible. The ultimate right-of-way cross-section width for 10th East from Major Collector Roadway is 84 feet wide. So a Major Collector Roadway can either have 5 lanes on it or 3 lanes. The 3 lanes does allow for shoulder space and those bike lanes, and depending on how I shift the roadway or paint the lines, it can provide for on-street parking. And then right now, 10th East doesn't have enough traffic volume to warrant the 5-lane cross-section. So for now, it will remain as 3 lanes.
You paint the lines?
I don't, but I have a guy.
Do you know if, as part of fixing the crosswalk, if flashing lights would be installed, like one of the neighborhood residents mentioned?
Oh, yeah, great question. Thank you. We do like to install the pedestrian activated flashing crosswalks wherever we can. And we do have funding to do that. And this crosswalk is on the list to install those. It hasn't been done yet because I don't have a good place to install the signs within the current right-of-way. Yeah, and then, however, another thing that residents can do to help move these improvements along is help provide the right-of-way to install them. So if they provide the needed dedication, then I'm more than happy to, even across the city where we don't have enough right-of-way to install improvements, when residents come together and they're willing to dedicate that right-of-way needed to install those improvements, that project gets shot up the priority list level, and we're usually pretty successful on being able to install those improvements. So that's a second way that residents can help if they would like.
So Brittany, you mentioned you do have the funding for those, and those could be installed if you had the right of way to do them.
Correct.
Okay.
The pedestrian activated crossing lights, yes.
And is that for the diagonal area as well, the diagonal crosswalk as well, or is that the one going east across to 10th East?
That would be
East-west.
for the existing diagonal crosswalk. The
The
pedestrian
diagonal,
activated push button lights are treatments for mid-block crosswalk applications where traffic is not already required to stop.
Okay.
I typically don't install them at stop signs.
Okay.
I think there was also a question relative to traffic, and I don't know if Ivan wants to talk about trips and relative to the development, or you want
Yeah.
to.
No, I'll let Ivan come up. He's our transportation engineer. He can come and talk about traffic.
Okay.
Yep.
Ivan Hooper, transportation engineer. As was said previously, based on industry standards, 6 units like this would generate in the 40, 50 vehicle trips a day. Those are based on averages, right? We don't know who's going to move in there and how many people are going to live there, so that's just a general number based on data from all around the country. Regardless, 40, 50, 60 vehicle trips a day it really is a negligible volume when you've got a couple thousand cars a day on the road already. Adding 1 or 2% really doesn't move the needle a whole lot as far as congestion and delay. Yeah.
Are there any additional follow-up questions relative to that question? No? Okay. Steve?
My question is, it is very congested, I bet, on that road, and you've got this, it looks like the 8590 will probably be a right-hand turn lane eventually. So this property will probably be just before that. I guess at some point we'll probably have to do with the off-street parking, where we park people, because it's right before a right-hand turn lane where they're going to be turning.
Yeah, right. That's a very legitimate concern. There wouldn't be room in front of the homes to park cars with the right turn lane. There's not really going to be room to the south, so if there was on-street parking, it would have to move to the north. But yeah, I mean that certainly could be a challenge depending on how many people live there, how many cars they have, or how many parties they have, or whatever.
Any other questions for Ivan? Okay. Are there any other clarifying questions for staff?
Actually, I guess what does it look like? So those current right-of-way, what is the current width of the right-of-way right now?
66 feet, I'm told.
It's 66,
Mhm.
and it's going to be going to
82, 84.
84. Okay.
Are there any other questions, concerns from staff that we need to address? Okay. Bring that back to the commission for further deliberation or action. I think we did. I think we hit the highlights of most of the concerns that we heard about traffic, the street improvements, some of the other issues. But
Yeah, I guess, so I do appreciate all the residents who have been able to come out and communicate this evening. We definitely have heard, the concerns and so forth. I hope that maybe that with your understanding of what the improvements that are going to be installed along 10th East and as it rounds southward along 8600 South, I think that does do a great deal to, add with the curb and gutter, the sidewalk, and so forth to, address safety issues through the area. It's in 10th East, as we did go on our tour, as Brittany was talking about, she's had a lot of requests about traffic lights at that signal as well, and which isn't warranted at this point. Maybe at some point in the future, based on traffic levels and so forth, that can be readdressed if it became to the degree where it would be warranted and so forth. And then also with regards to, like I think Jake was talking about, with the general plan, and I guess the concern for the creep of this kind of issue going in, that I hope there's some understanding and knowledge that that light tan area that where the majority of this was is that's to apply for and get approval for this type of zoning that the current applicant is applying for. I think is a heavy hurdle to overcome to move into that light tan area. So I would hope that would give some comfort in that aspect as well. So anyway, those are my thoughts on that. So and then also, as Jake mentioned, I think that there is I think for a city to grow and mature, there's a need to have some additional housing types to hopefully provide some income variations for people to be able to enter into the community. We have a great community, predominantly single family, which I think we've all enjoyed, and which is, as you can see, which is predominantly that light tan area there. So having some variation is, I think, a positive thing for the community overall.
Are there other thoughts? Steve? Or Ron, you've been quiet.
Yeah, but it's a tough one for me because of I'm not a big fan of this concept plan at all, but we're talking about zoning, but I would have a problem with any of the land use development. I would say, why couldn't you develop this with just one driveway and try to put your units in there instead of having the 5 driveways? So for me, I think that there's not enough creativity yet, but I realize that comes down the road. We're talking about the zoning and not necessarily all of the design features.
Yeah, and on that line, that's why I was asking that question about the RM10. I don't know what those factors are that are influencing, what other options there are and so forth.
Well, and also what authority do we have to change those as they come in with a good project that maybe mitigates some of those access things? And when you look at the way you can control setbacks and what authority that we have as a commission to help offset some of the things we don't like about this. I'm not thrilled with it, what I'm basically saying.
Cameron or Jennifer, do you have any?
I'm ready for a motion,
Okay.
if we're ready for one. So I'd make a motion that we send a positive recommendation to the city council for the rezone of this property located at, I'm just gonna call it the Fortner annexation.
Fortner rezone.
Yes, rezone, Fortner rezone, thank you, Mike.
Is there a second?
And what zone were you recommending?
The RM12.
Okay.
I'm almost there. I'm not positive. Again, I'm not positive what the differences are. I do have some of those concerns that Ron might have as well. I'm not positive what those concerns are, but as I mentioned before, I think having a different housing type is great for the community in total. I don't know if it was an RM10, if there's things that would like maybe mitigate it so that there was different driveway access issues or additional parking or whatever. I think that does get a little more difficult too, though, on additional parking if it's there's not common area. So that's kind of a tough route as well. So I don't know. What is everybody else's feelings before?
Jennifer, do you have any?
Is that part of the zoning, the questions you have and the concerns you have based on the general plan and what's provided in the general plan moving forward as a city versus the zoning change? Does that address the different zone, address the concerns? Or would that be part of the site proposal and approval?
It is going to come into play on site plan, but I think that the zone is going to drive what's allowed, and if they're putting forth something that's allowed, we really don't have a lot of leeway. And so that's why I'm saying I don't know what those limitations are on like the RM10, what that might push the project to have to look at that would open up a different product. So therefore I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know if there's anything.
Something, Jake, would you clarify?
Jake, do you want to clarify that question from?
Should have let you invite me before I
Go ahead.
stood up. We have the applicant first approached us with his vision, which was more than what it is now, so we've tried to work with him to accommodate within our current zoning standards at this zone. We are limited. We hope to have better zoning tools with the comprehensive code rewrite that I mentioned earlier to better correlate with the general plan vision. One of those limitations, for example, is that we currently limit a private lane to only provide access to 2 units. There's additional space towards the west end of this property, back in the back. Would a better design be 3 duplexes, for example? We've looked at alternatives, and it's within our current limitations of the current zone. We couldn't find an alternative that we could suggest to the applicant to address some of the things we're talking about. So I mentioned earlier other factors besides the density associated with an RM10 versus an RM12. An RM10 would likely reduce the number of units that they potentially could develop here. I'm not advocating one way or another. I'm just saying that would probably be the consequence of that. The applicant has requested an RM12, and so we've tried to work with the applicant to address concerns and impacts the best we can within the zone that they've requested. I think, so there's some limitations that we're working with. That we hear what you're saying, we understand those things as well, and have tried to work with the applicant on some of those things previously. Procedurally, and I don't want to step on our attorney's toes, but what's before you is a request for the RM12, and your role is to make a recommendation on that request to the city council. If you think there might be a more appropriate zone, I would make sure that's expressed so it's in the record and in the narrative. But I think your role is to forward a recommendation on the zone that's before you.
And just to add to what Jake was saying, I did some quick math, and an RM10 would limit it down to 5 units based on the square footage that they have.
Mental math.
Just quick back of the napkin type of thing. The other thing to note is while we had discussed the driveway issue for the units facing 10th East, currently the RM zone isn't allowed to utilize alleys, for example, to feed rear-loaded units or something like that, where the units face the street but their garages were at the back. That would require a code amendment in order to allow for RM zones to use that land typology. But those are things that we can deal with through site plan and potential future code amendments. But as of right now, that's one of the limitations of the RM zone that Jake was discussing.
Yeah. And it kind of goes back to that balancing act of the vision of the general plan, but balancing alternative housing types, introducing more alternative housing types with impacts and so forth, and then using the tools that we currently have, though, to try and do our best to implement that vision.
Yeah, I think the rewrite of the ordinances, I think, this
hopefully,
highlights where a rewrite of the ordinances, I think, would be a positive play on a property like this.
Yeah.
Personally, but, yeah. I think we are dealing with what we have on our current ordinances and the current applications, however, so that's, I think that's what we're at.
Any other clarifications from Jake that we need?
So to respond to your
underlying
motion.
We have a motion, but no second.
Yeah, I'm gonna second. You seconded it? Yeah.
Cameron Duncan,
Yes.
Dave Bromley,
Yes.
Ron Mortimer,
No.
Steve Wrigley,
No.
Jennifer George,
Yes.
Danny Schoenfeld.
Yes.
This motion carries.
Okay, that passes, and so that'll be forwarded on to the city council for further action based on the recommendation. So, thank you. Next on the agenda tonight is the 106 Church rezone at 166 East, 106 South.
Thank you, Planning Commission. So staff again has received an application for rezone of property located at 166 East, 106 South. The property it's 1 acre or 1 parcel and approximately 1.94 acres in size. Are we okay to proceed?
Please proceed.
Okay. Currently, there is a church on the property and a caretaker home, and the request is to change the zoning district on the property from the R140A zone to the R110 zone. The surrounding zoning to the west and to the south is also R110. The property to the east is R140A, and the property to the north across 106 South is R120A and R210. So the R110 zone that they're requesting is a single-family residential zone that would require a minimum of 10,000 square feet per lot. As I mentioned, the current use of the property is for church, religious and cultural uses are an allowed land use in residential zones. So regardless if this church is in the R140A or the R110 zone, a church would be allowed on this property. The applicant, before I move on to the concept, this is the future land use map. A little more straightforward than last one, no annexation involved. This area south of 106 South is designated as low density neighborhood. 106 South does have the transition corridor designation along that. However, the applicant is requesting the R110 zone, which would be consistent with the underlying low density neighborhood land use designation and not pursuing something along the lines of the transition corridor designation. The applicant has submitted a concept plan that with the intent of subdividing the property creating 3 residential lots and maintaining the church on a separate lot. So the church is intended to stay there. The church would require a modified site plan to address access, parking, landscaping, those type of issues. And then the 3 residential lots would be created. Those residential lots are intended to front on the road to the west, which is labeled here as Crest Ridge, but it's not Crest Ridge. Hollow Bend. Yeah, sorry. It threw me there for a second. I'm not sure where that label came from. Hollow Bend has a slightly smaller cross-section than our current standards, so that's something that we're working with. And Hollow Bend is the park strip and side treatments there have been maintained by the HOA of the neighborhood to the south, and so that would be an issue that would be resolved through the subdivision process as well. Again, this is a legislative item that is being presented to you for consideration, to hold a public hearing, and then to forward a recommendation to the city council. And the applicant is in attendance, and staff is available for questions.
Thank you. If you want to come up and just introduce or state your name and address, add any additional information on
my name's Matt Snade. I'm from 5143 South Chinook Way in Murray, Utah. I represent the owners that are processing this or submitting this request. To start with, we met with the planning commission or planning department just to review what the general plan was, make sure we're conforming to that. I think most of the people that went in previous to us were going for a much denser ideas according to the log, and so after reviewing kind of what the general plan states, we went through a couple different iterations to do something that's more uniform and probably more fitting for the neighborhood. And we once we landed on kind of keeping this residential rather than medium density, we also went through a couple different iterations of this site plan, whether it's private lane, flag lot, all these different ideas, and settled on this, which I think ended up actually being great. So we did brainstorm quite a bit before getting here. But what else? We've met with everybody in the departments, different departments. We feel pretty good about this site plan. I think it's going to be a good redo of the outside of the property. Like most, the entire outside of the church will be redone. The church seats about 200 people right now. The parking ratio will fit perfect for that. Have all new asphalt. We'll be upgrading the outside to meet the landscape buffers on around the whole edge, since a lot of this property hasn't been updated in a while. We'll bring that up to the conforming standards for a church. I think it's also probably a benefit that we're reducing the entryways. Right now there's 2 entryways on a 106. We're reducing that one down to 1. It is a 1-way loop and then a 2-way exit out onto there, so people can come in and out on that entrance on the east side. I think that's it. There's a lot of other things that I think are more probably appropriate for the site plan review that we're ahead of the game and ready to address on that. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys may have regarding that.
Any questions from the commission? Okay, I think you're good. Thank you. This item has been noticed to the public. Is there anybody here tonight that would like to speak on this issue? If you could come forward and state your name and address. Sure. And just pick one of the 2 mics.
My name is Roger Brown. I live at 10703 South Hollow Cove. I am one of 3 that are managers for the 26 residents that live within the properties that surround the entire church property. I don't think there's actually much of a concern about the change, except for the fact that it impacts the small road, which is designated by a number of 150 East. It's a rather small road, and I think the plan was to create driveways off of that onto those homes that would be built there, which would make it pretty difficult to be getting cars through that area, through that designated area. If the plan goes forward and they redesignate it, it would probably take away the the HOA for the community as a whole. We basically established it many years ago, and in fact, an attempt was made many years ago to actually ask the city to take it back. That we didn't really want the responsibilities of an HOA, and that was denied. So given the fact that our primary concern is just that the 150 East, or Hollow Bend Drive as it's designated currently, that it needs to be wider if we're going to put driveways onto 2 or 3 homes on that street, just to ensure that we've got a good flow. And that small street that's designated there, when you depart that street onto 106th, the only option you have is to turn right, as there's an island there. So that would be a consideration if someone was going to build on that street or on the 150 East, that perhaps it would be appropriate to maybe take the island out so that right and left turns could be, because there's not a lot of traffic there. It's just designated to get us in and out. And in fact, many of the residents that live on the other side of the complex or of the residential area, they depart the road on the other side, which is 250 East. So that's our take on it. And in my conversations with the other members of the management team for the HOA, we don't have a problem with this. We're just concerned about the small road and how it would be utilized. Okay?
Thank you. Is there anybody else here that would please come down and state your name and address for the record?
Hello, my name's Wade Sharp. I live at 223 East Crescent Bend Drive, and I am a member of that HOA as well. Roger, I think, summed up a lot of things pretty well. As far as it goes with zoning, it doesn't seem like most people have a real problem with it. However, this application was pretty vague to us. We weren't sure of what your plans were. So I'm here representing myself and a couple of the neighbors as well. Roger's representing the management company. We weren't sure if you were going to utilize or desire to utilize that lane. If you do, which it sounds like you are, then it could create some additional traffic through the HOA there, which has been pretty light and pretty nice. But with a right in, right out only, they will definitely be coming through the other one. And so if you're putting 3 additional houses there, which I guess you're doing single-family residences.
If you could address it
right?
to us, or to
Okay.
us, please.
Yeah,
Sorry,
the other
thank you.
package seemed to be pretty complete. This one seems to be vague, so I wasn't quite sure what was there. Mr. Duncan, you mentioned something about a secondary period where they'll show design or something like that.
Yep. There's.
Do we have any say on design as neighbors, or is this our only chance to speak?
So I can address
Go
that.
ahead, please, James.
So this is just a rezoning where they'll rezone the property, but this will come back through a site plan approval process where
Subdivision.
approval where the neighborhood will be noticed, and we'll have an opportunity to come and speak at that as well.
Okay, so we could say if you're gonna put pink, whatever up there, it might not fit
Well,
with our motif or
probably,
whatever.
we don't regulate the colors like
Okay,
that, but there
well,
are
that
certain
was-
things that you can. That's an example though.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So there's an opportunity for us to
Yes,
speak
there's
to that.
additional opportunities.
Okay. So then I guess the big concern was, and what we wanted to figure out is which way that we're going. The lane there is platted as private property, I believe. So we're gonna have to work with the developer to get approval to cross our property, which is HOA property, to deposit
I
onto
think
that
we'll have
lane.
to
Am
check
I
with
wrong?
the city staff on that detail.
Okay. So in speaking with several, and my understanding of that is it's not as simple as just saying this is what we want to do and we're going to deposit. The width of the road is certainly a concern, but, it may be manageable. But we're looking to say that we probably want some sort of expense or something for that piece of property that we've cared for the last 18 years. Our HOA fees go to maintain that property to run the water, run the planting, the whole thing, stuff like that. So we're looking at, working with the developer to see if there's something there. Also, there's a retention basin there. That was part of what we wanted to, I think, give to the city at one point in time, and it was declined back when, so we've learned to live with it, basically. And then let me see. Roger mentioned the median, the right in, right out, width of the road. It may be something that we want to think about, whether we utilize that as a secondary entrance with a left-hand turn right there. Yeah, I think Roger's covered the rest of it, so.
Thank you.
That's all we have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here tonight want to speak on that item? I don't think so. Mike, anybody online?
If you are joining us via Zoom webinar and would like to speak to this particular item, please use the raise your hand feature now and we'll address you one at a time. Looks like we do have one hand that is raised. Robert Zhang, you may unmute yourself. Please state your name and address for the record.
First, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so my name is Robert Zhang. I'm the resident of 10698 South Hollow Cove. And I think that Roger mentioned about the concern, with 3 units coming in, and given the stats, given by your city traffic transportation engineer, we anticipate every day will be about 20, traffics, with 3 units, right? 6 for 40. So on average, it will be 20. And I already perceive some problem with that, road. It's pretty narrow. And we have somebody who parked because we're on when you go to the 106 on the left side, there's like a small house there. And folks over there often park their cars on this road. With the one, if you have one car park over there, then people try to go back and forth, 2 cars, somebody coming in, somebody going out. That create a problem. And that problem at this point is light. It's not because sometimes they park, sometimes not. But with the 3 residents, it become a routine. I don't know if they're allowed to park their car on the roads. If they are, that can be a problematic. That could create a perpetual issues for the community, when people going out and going in. So I think that I really like Roger's suggestion that, widen the road, create another, space of 1 car length, so those residents, if they're allowed to park on the car, they can, use that additional land, then it will not affect the traffic flow. That's my, I think, yeah, and also I think Roger mentioned about this road belongs to our HOA, and currently we are maintaining the road, like those trees. We get rid of the grass, but the trees are still, maintained by the HOA. So that's the issue we need to, communicate with the developer and to see how this can be resolved, okay? Whether their takeover or whether, what is the solution, the optimal solution in this situation? I think before they start planning or even building, we need to get those, household issue resolved, So, yeah, that's my 2 pennies.
Thank you.
I'm seeing no other hands raised.
Okay, we'll go ahead and close the public comment and bring that back. Jake, do you want to talk about the traffic or the road question?
Yeah. So I appreciate the residents' input. Many of the issues that have been raised are issues that we're aware of and working on behind the scenes. Those are issues that would need to be resolved as part of the next phase if the rezone is approved. The applicant is hopeful that the rezone will be approved and is already working through those issues that would be subject to the next phase of the potential project. Brittany Ward's not in the room right now, but she has had a couple of, we as staff, including Brittany, have had a couple of meetings with the applicant, and the road width has specifically been raised. Brittany has taken the lead on that, and the applicant, I believe, is, I think just today requested another meeting with her on that issue specifically. So we're aware of that issue, and our Assistant Public Works Director is working through that with the applicant. Let me just clarify, I believe that that road is a public road, but that road was probably necessary when that development, that subdivision south was developed for access. And so they took on, typically park strips are the responsibility of the adjacent property owner, but where that road was required, I assume that's why that HOA was given requirement for the park strips and the retention pond along that road, even though they are not the adjacent property owners. That is also an issue that we've had some discussions with. The applicant is aware that he will need to work with the HOA on that. It's my expectation that the applicant would need to take responsibility of some of the maintenance on that and on that road, specifically, at least on the west side. And then there would need to be further discussions, Public Works, Public Utilities on the retention pond, if that were to be a consideration for the city to take responsibility of that. But so we're aware of those issues. We're working on some of those issues, and those would need to be resolved as part of the next phase if the rezone were to be approved.
And just to clarify, that road is a public road.
Okay.
And it was required as part of the development to the south. There is a storm drain detention that's part of the overall infrastructure that was required as part of that development. It just sits in the public right of way, and it's maintained by that HOA.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, we'll bring that back to the commission and further deliberation and possible action.
Sorry, Chair, I did have one more question.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
And I don't know, maybe Ivan could speak to the center median in 106th and who has jurisdiction over 106th.
Ivan Hooper, Transportation Engineer. 106 is city road, so that would be our median. Frankly, it's unlikely we would remove it because that would just, it was there, put there for a good reason to prevent left turns from crashing into each other there, so.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Bring that back to us for.
I'm comfortable with the project and moving forward and ready for a motion unless there's other comments.
I don't see any.
I'm good.
Okay, I'd like to forward a positive recommendation recommending that the City Council approve the application for a zone change of the subject property from R140A zone to the R110 zone.
I'll second that.
Sorry, was that Steve?
Yes.
Dave Bromley?
Yes.
Steve Wrigley?
Yes.
Cameron Duncan?
Yes.
Ron Mortimer?
Yes.
Jennifer George?
Yes.
Danny Schoenfeld?
Yes.
This motion carries.
All right, good luck and on to the next phase of the development. All right, administrative business. We have February 5th meeting minutes that need to be approved. Do I have a motion for those?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Director's report.
I do have an item that I wanted to just bring to your attention and have you calendar. We are going to have a combined meeting, the Planning Commission and the City Council on March 10th. That is a Tuesday night on their meeting. That will be an introduction basically to the development code update, development code rewrite. And the purpose of that meeting is really to unveil that and as a kickoff meeting with the Planning Commission, City Council, and the administration together to get some of their initial input, but really to look at the scope of that and get a firsthand kind of understanding of where that's going and any information or input you'd like to give as we start that off. That's going to be starting at 5:15. The dinner will be, you're invited to the dinner at 4:30, and the meeting will kick at 5:15. We're planning on 45 minutes. We have no more than, we can't take any longer than an hour. So it's somewhere between 45 minutes and an hour, so fairly quick meeting. And it'll be in the multi-purpose room.
Okay.
That evening as well. So it'll just be a discussion really, and hopefully you can be there and we'll get it kicked off. And they're already working on it, but this is a chance to really have everybody see the scope of work and where they're looking at heading with this.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we've partnered with Somas Group that will be leading that as our consultant on that project. Melissa Anderson in our department will be our staff liaison that will be kind of spearheading that effort. So we're excited to get that underway, and you'll be involved and have probably a couple of these kind of joint meetings with the city council over the next couple of years as well, as we bring some of these bigger issues to both of you. We will have a meeting on March 5th, which will be our next Planning Commission meeting. Wanted to put that on your radars. So as of right now, I don't have any items for sure on the 19th, but it's likely we'll have a meeting then as well.
Okay.
No, I haven't, but thank you for reminding me. We do have an introduction to make, formal introduction. So Doug Wheelwright, as I mentioned last time, retired. And we've have a new employee filling that role as Development Services Manager, and that's Clinton Spencer. He comes to us via Harriman City, was his last station. But if you will come up and kind of introduce yourself to the group, and so they can get to know you a little bit better.
This first time when you introduce yourself, usually we expect you to take about 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, I got 20 minutes. Yeah. I mean, nobody's in a rush to get out of here, right? We're all expecting to stay till like at least 9. Every other planning commission I've ever been to. I'll just get long-winded and, you cut me off.
He's a planner.
Yeah. I'll try to keep it short. So Clint Spencer, I live out in Eagle Mountain. I've been doing this for 23 years now. I started off in Orem, was there for 14 years, and then the fun part about getting a new job is you get to introduce yourself about 20 times, so I kind of got the script down. But I worked for Ogden for 5 years, and loved the kind of the urban interface stuff there that we did in the downtown area. And I feel like I don't know, Ogden and Sandy have a lot of similarities I'm noticing, just in terms of how they're established and kind of the grit of the development, so to speak. Driving from Eagle Mountain to Ogden was not fun, so I found a job in Harriman, and now I'm here. So yeah, I feel like I've learned a lot. I hope I've learned a lot over the years I've been doing this. It's always interesting coming to a new planning commission meeting and hearing the same stuff that I've heard for 23 years now happens everywhere I've ever been. So yeah, if you guys have any questions for me, I'm glad to answer anything, but glad to be here.
We're super excited to have Clinton.
Yep. Welcome.
Thank you.
Anything else?
That's it, but thank you for doing a really good job tonight handling those rezones. Good
Awesome.
job.
Okay, we have one final motion.
Motion. I
Ron
am
is ready for this
comfortable
one.
that we're sending a 4-2 vote to the council, because it's like, hey, we're struggling with this. So it gives a message that it just wasn't an easy decision. So when you have that chance, remind them of that this was not easy.
Well, and I think it's not easy because our zoning needs to be updated, which is why we're going through this process to really refine it. And they could always take the option to wait.
Yeah.
A zoning decision like that is discretionary. It's up to the city council ultimately. Yes, a multifamily zoning I think is supported in the general plan, but the tools to implement the general plan as we envisioned that to happen haven't been developed yet. So that's why we're so excited to get this project underway, and so we can have better tools that makes all of our jobs easier, and hopefully get a better outcome as a result for these types of developments.
I did think it was amazing that our Public Works, you know, all the things that were planned for that area were already in the works and funded. So I think that gives a lot of comfort to, you could see out in the hall, a lot of comfort to the residents that those things were happening. And I thought it was a great educational night for them to learn a lot of stuff that is happening in the area. I thought Brittany did a great job explaining that.
Some of them aren't even in Sandy yet, right? So why would Sandy spend all of our money to?
Well, most of
improve
it
the roads?
hadn't been in Sandy until recently. And so
Yeah.
that's part of the reason why that area is disinvested, is that it's not been in our jurisdiction. It's not been in our ability to make those improvements. It's been in the counties. So we're glad that they haven't withdrawn their funding just because it's no longer in the county, though. So that's exciting for us.
We still need one final motion.
Motion to.
Ron was moving.
Motion to
on
adjourn,
one.
all in favor?
Oh, you were just talking about that.
All in favor? Aye.